Today we are discussing transforming STEM, an innovative approach as it relates to health information management student practicums and to address global emergency preparedness. My name is Denise Marshall. I'll be your moderator today. I want to welcome our panel from Coppin State University, comprising of Dr. Butler. Let me just get the bios for you. Dr. Butler currently serves as the Director of Clinical Affairs of Health Information Management, as well as the Assistant Faculty at the Coppin State University School of Allied Health. During her time at Coppin State University, she has led the community of organizations as it relates to partnerships with the Comcast Foundation to address the digital divide amongst distressed youth and adults. Supportive of these efforts, she has managed to transform multiple high schools and college students with various allied health technology and business management fields. Dr. Butler recently received her doctorate from the University of Maryland. Dr. Butler also has obtained an MBA specializing in project management from the Walden University. Our next presenter also comprises of, from the Coppin State team, we have Professor Tantum. She is the approved ICD-10 CM-PCS trainer in the health information management field. She has approximately 20 years of experience in coding and reimbursement and has 7 years of experience in teaching. Professor Tantum, she has a bachelor's in health sciences, a bachelor's in health information management from the East Carolina University and a master's degree in health care administration with a concentration in health informatics from the University of Maryland. And finally, we have Professor Abui Patience. She is currently a doctoral student at the University of Maryland, and she has received her master's in public health, along with a graduate certificate in emergency preparedness. I want to welcome you to the session, and I look forward because this is my passion, health information. So I am going to be here, and I'm looking forward to the key areas you're going to address as it relates to STEM and how you would incorporate this to the 21st century learner. I want to learn all about the approaches that you have here as it relates to safeguarding protected health information as it relates to the global environment. So let's welcome the team.
Thank you guys so much. I totally appreciate you guys coming to the session and sticking it out to the very last minute. Okay, so if you wouldn't mind. So today we're gonna talk to you about Coppin State University, talk a tiny bit about the mission and the values, the vision. We are going to discuss the College of Health Professions at Coppin State University, in particular the Health Information Management Department. We are going to intertwine and overlay STEM into the HIM curriculum, as well as talk about emergency preparedness. So we have a professional expert in emergency preparedness with Patience Abui. The HIM student contributions will be discussed by Dr. Robin Butler, and then we'll all come in on the conclusions, and then we'll make you all ask us questions. So a little bit about the mission of Coppin State University. We are a historically black college and university, one of several in Maryland, which is where we are. We're in Baltimore, Maryland. And so our vision and our mission statement, so I'll just read a little bit about it. Coppin State is an urban, comprehensive, and historically black college and institution, building on a legacy of excellence in teacher preparedness in the metropolitan community. The university offers quality undergraduate, graduate programs in teacher education, liberal arts, health professions, technology, and the STEM discipline. We have a firm commitment to ensure that the 21st century learner is actually taken care of. We want to make sure that we're not leaving those students behind. The CSU College of Health Professions is actually combined or consists of 3 departments. So we have, oh sorry, 3 majors. So we have the College of Allied Health, the School of Allied Health, and we have the School of Nursing. So the College of Allied Health consists of Health Information Management and Health Sciences. So our HIM program, or the Health Information Management program, is one that we are extremely proud of because we are the only baccalaureate program in the state of Maryland where students can come, graduate, and actually sit for the National Registration Exam, which is the Registered Health Information Management Association. And so that is a huge accomplishment because with those credentials, students do so much better in the workforce. So we have our faculty aligned, like I said, with Patience Ibui with the catastrophic piece, and she's going to talk about that. HIM students are a strong asset, definitely. HIT students and HIM students are an extremely strong asset to Barbados because you are training people that know how to act in a disaster. You're training people that know how to protect health information, how to secure it, how to keep it accurate, and keep that integrity into that particular patient information. So just a little bit about our curriculum at Coppin State. I have this particular schematic of our junior year. And so in our HIM 300 program, the students they get a deep dive into everything health information management-wise. So they're gonna talk about coding and reimbursement. They're gonna talk about security. They're gonna talk about legal and all kinds of laws and different types of torts and different things like that. They're gonna talk about how the actual medical record flows around the hospital and where it starts and where it stops. In healthcare, finance, and reimbursement, they're gonna learn about the various aspects of insurance and reimbursement in different areas where reimbursement changes. They're gonna take their first coding course, and of course, pathophysiology. And what we've incorporated this semester for this incoming cohort is technical writing. And I don't know if you guys were in the session with Dr. Tolson, but writing is extremely important in this health information field. It is not something that we want to take lightly, and we see that it has been taken lightly in the past. So much so that we were kind of discouraged when we started reading the papers and the responses to these essay questions and, you know, things that we asked the students to write. And so we're taking it really seriously now, and we are actually printing out papers and writing all over them and making sure that they understand that writing is totally important. So in the spring, they are taking a quality course where we are discussing you know, how surveys matter, what statistics matter, and how they can tie that into health information management. In non-traditional settings, students are learning just that HIM and HIT is not just in the hospital. They are wherever information needs to be protected. Legal aspects of HIM, we actually have a lawyer teaching that class. And so we have her going in and she's talking, it's a deeper dive into legal aspects in healthcare. We have our second coding class, which is usually CPT and HCPCS, those outpatient kinds of coding classifications. And then they also take pharmacology. In the senior year, we have decided to break out the Registered Health Information Management Technology prep course. So the first one, we are reminding the students of everything that they took, and we are going through and we're making sure that they understand everything. We're prepping them for the testing and the type of testing that they're supposed to do. We're giving them the 160 question test on a computer, and it's timed so that they don't get out there and actually take the test and they're scared and frozen and not sure what to do. So that's the HIM 401 and HIM 403 in the spring. So in the spring, in that HIM 403 class, they're actually going to take the exam. So no longer are we waiting for them to graduate and hope that they register and take the exam. It is going to be included in their fees, and they are going to take the exam. So before they graduate, we'll have RHIA passers. So I'd like to also talk lastly for my portion about the HIM 412 and 413. These are the management courses that are broken into two classes. HIM 412 is totally done in open educational resources, so the students do not have to purchase textbooks for this. We are using what they call their HIM Bible, which is a really huge book that talks everything HIM, talks about everything HIM, and then everything else is article-based or online textbooks, so the students don't have to come out of pocket anymore for their textbooks for this particular class. Also in the management class, we're talking about things like writing job descriptions, creating and maintaining policies and procedures. We are talking about how to deal with employees and even how to deal with burnout and stress. And so a lot of those things that would happen during a time of disaster, we are preparing our students for, so that they are not caught off guard and that they are prepared with contingency plans and different things like that.
Thank you so much. I am going to talk a little bit about health information informatics in the actual practicum. The students actually do not come to me until the senior year, and provided they are very much prepared to go out into the field. So these aren't, a lot of times we've sort of looked at them at one time as mock fields, but these are actually actual fields that the students, or actual field experiences that the students have, many of which are able to have employment after that. And the population of students that we have, that is very, very important to them. So with health information, health informatics and management practicum, we have them, they have opportunity to be exposed and demonstrate certain HIM competencies, that's health information and informatics management competencies. They apply the knowledge, the curriculum, the robust curriculum that you saw before, the plan of study. They use that information and they apply it to whatever practicum experience there is, so whether it be here regionally, whether it be regionally back at home in the States or global, they should be able to apply that. Function as a member of a team, of course. A lot of teamwork takes place under HIM, and they're working under the demands of an actual organization. And that matters as we sort of emerge the 21st learner in workforce. So we have traditional and non-traditional settings with the practicums that we pretty much prepare the student with. I wanted to kind of start with, I've been with Coppin for about almost 10 years now. And when I first had the students, we had about probably, I want to say, about 6 students. Upon my role as Director of Clinical Affairs, we had about maybe 12. That has grown astronomically to about 40 students we graduate. So if you can multiply that by the number, not even multiply, add that with the number of sites that we have to accommodate them with, it can get challenging. So it takes a lot of creativity on our part to make sure that they're getting what they need and make sure that it matches the plan of study. So some of the traditional health information management departments that we have, transcription, we've started out with, process documentation, we have a lot of CDIP, which is clinical documentation improvement, practitioner, if they wanted to go into that particular portion of HIM. We have workflow analysis, process redesign. So all of these sort of mimic the project management duties of an HIM professional. Release of information, data analysis. Some non-traditional practicums are found in IT, records processing, coding. We have a lot of coding practicums. Back to the information technology that we have under non-traditional, we've had some students, which is very important. We have a lot of alumni who are now consultants. And a lot of times they bring the students on with them to do consultant projects. So we've had that and we've integrated that to date. Some of the others are education, working directly with physicians, okay? Prison systems, that is actually our most, I wouldn't say most recent. We've been partnered with we've been partnered with the prison system within the Baltimore, Maryland area and outskirts for probably about 3 years now. Very hard agreement to get, but we finally got it. Took a lot of buy-in from the students. The students actually had to visit the prison system. And I remember when we brought about, it was nursing and HIN, we probably brought about maybe anywhere from 30 to 35 students in at a time to just sort of see what their interest was. And I thought that that was a breakthrough for the students to say, hey, you're not just going to go to hospitals anymore to complete your practicums. Health information is here in the prison systems as well. So we've had a lot of students to even request going to prison, not literally. Okay. Management affiliation, we cover some domains. Under management affiliation, we have, of course, change management. We look into leadership roles. A lot of students get to shadow a lot of HIN professionals, preferably registered health information administrators. Ethics. I have placed some students in the OAG's office, which is the Office of Attorneys General, and they have worked on projects. In Baltimore, we have a huge, I'll give you an example. In Baltimore, we have a huge opiate epidemic, and they needed, the OAG's office partnered with the state of Maryland to sort of tackle that. So I sent about 2 students to the OAG's office, and they were actually a part of that same initiative. So that's some of the really great projects that they've been sort of invested in. Okay. So when we look at the students and the emerging 21st century learner, we look at 3 types of theoretical lens and frameworks. The first lens that we pretty much, and I want you to sort of look at it and imagine it as it's sort of a tube, if you will. We start with what we call a global learning lens. And we have to pretty much use that as a focus or supportive base for what the initiative or what we plan to do with the students should they complete their practicums in global regions or global experience, or if they have global experiences. So global learning lens looks at the transformational facilitation that must first occur both within the course and potentially affected environment. So university faculty have to pretty much buy into this approach. They have to leverage incorporating experimental lessons first to the student before the student can pretty much have some buy-in and sort of have some investment in it. The same thing that occurred when we took the students to the prison systems. Nobody ever thought to take students into prisons, but we have loads of them in Maryland and on the outskirts. So it was more practicum opportunities for us, but it gave the students more of alternative opportunities so they could still use that, apply that curriculum as said. Bandura's self-efficacy theory. When we look at self-efficacy theory, we look at the actual student, the actual HIM student, and we look at them as stakeholders. This theory explains how individuals evolve and they transfer a dynamic content based on what they've experienced before. So if the student had a really bad experience with a practicum site, and that does happen, more than likely, it sort of overpowers the degree as to which they're going to do it again, try it again, or not. So the more that you push that curriculum and the more that you push those experiences, that self-efficacy increases. Structural contingency theory, and Professor Bowie is going to sort of tap on this when she gets to emergency preparedness. In the context of working with global organizations, they are also stakeholders. In this particular theory, it says that it has to be an interconnectedness of structures, okay, that are customized to address that organizational functionality in the time of emergencies. So if those global stakeholders are going through different disasters or issues that they aren't quite prepared for, that HIM stakeholder, along with the university faculty and the university support, can bridge that gap and hopefully leverage those contingencies. So this kind of shows you a little bit how the theoretical frameworks drive that holistic approach. We first, of course, again, have that university faculty stakeholder that has to they have to pretty much keep on that global lens in order to reach that HIM student stakeholder. But in order to reach that HIM stakeholder, we have to invest more in that self-efficacy theory and know that that is pretty much can be a challenge, or it can pretty much drive the student to have a desire to go into the global organization or help with these types of events. Last but not least, you have the global stakeholder, and of course, it's supported with the structural contingency theory. Patience, Bowie. Professor Bowie.
So how prepared are we when we have different kind of students? We cannot use the same lens, right, to judge every student. We have students that comes from students that are working, that have the experience. We have students that are like 18 years old that are there. Then how do you merge these different learning styles into one framework and start teaching them? So when you look at the purpose of emergency preparedness, it's not just about disaster, right? So how do you begin to teach these students? So we're looking at the operations, the process that we have in place, that the schools that we have, that we producing the students, what are the process that we have in place? Like capping, what process do we have? Like we talked about the different sites that we send the students to. And also, I'm sure that here in Barbados, you guys have different sites that you send your students to. Also, if you're looking at logistics, what are the resources that are in place that we have to give to our students to be able to prepare them towards this STEM, this new science, technology, and engineering, to be able to educate them for them to go out into the workforce to be able to produce the outcome. The goal is that whatever you produce, right, what is your end product of the student? How prepared are we during these lectures we give in the student? So we have the resources that we have, like we talked about capping, that we have the different layers of classes that we give the student in order for them to qualify to go into the workforce. So in that process, what are we doing? We're also talking about, when looking at the framework there, we look about operations, which I have talked about. We have the logistic and the planning. So the planning will start from when they come in, right? The planning starts from when the student comes in and you start to educate them into that process. But if you don't have the finance to be able to educate or give them the tools that they need in STEM, right? So how prepared are we when you don't have the tools to be able to educate them? Like we have different, like I've said before, different learning style in class. So how do we merge them together to be able to produce that? So like in our school, what we normally do is that we have, sometimes we have what is called a Blackboard Collaboration, right? Some students, even though they are in far, maybe they have a job and they cannot be able to come to class, but they can be able to join the classroom live. So if we have a student from Barbados, right? So we can prepare them because they can join, as long as they have internet service, they can join the classroom live to have the same knowledge that we produce into students. So what are the purpose of emergency preparedness? We have to minimize the damage. So that means the training has to start from beginning in order to minimize. We cannot stop, sometimes you cannot stop the damage, but you can at least minimize that training. So we have to ensure the safety of staff and customers. The key one that I want to point to again is to provide for continuity of operations. How do we transform students from a community college to the university? Like we talked about, when we have them on board, the writing style are different. So how do we train them? So we have to be stakeholder and able to educate these students to have that resources or tools that we need to lay the foundation that we all talked about. Okay, next slide. So effective emergency management. So we have the state, we have the tribal government. So what is the national response framework? As a stakeholder, both the community colleges and the four-year universities have to work together in order to develop a fundamental framework to be able to transfer the student from community college to bachelor's degree. And it doesn't have to stand there, it doesn't have to stop there. Because if they have the body of knowledge, then anything can happen. It doesn't matter if you are from a community college or you are from the United States. As long as the education continues, that national framework is there. If we all come together as a national, we have a stakeholder, we have invested interest on the student to be able to continue their education that they want. So there should not be a barrier from whatever your local or your state. It should be continuum. So that's what STEM is all about, right? Science, technology, engineering. So if you have the tools, no matter the location that you are in, you should be able to have the same education to move to the next level. So we're talking about disaster. Thank you. So we have different stakeholders, like we have the federal government, we have the NGOs. But I would like to move to prevention, preparedness, recovery, and response. So then the question now becomes, if you have different learning styles, or you have different students, different age in a classroom, how do you merge them together? Because I know I'm teaching a class that is open educational resources, does not have a textbook, and I have some that are in the workforce that are already there. Even though this is a classroom that do not have a textbook, some students still do not like it, right? Some people want to hold the textbook, because I was using like journals and articles to teach them the key element that they needed, but they were opposition forces because they don't like it, because there's no textbook for them to hold. So how do you bridge that gap in your classroom? As people have different learning style, you can include videos, right? So we have to look at all the old 4 elements that we have to merge the student, no matter what region it comes from or what local government you come from. If we have to stick to STEM, science, technology, and engineering, we have the tools and we have the capability, but we just have to have a partnership in order to make this come to reality. Next slide. This is my last slide. It's just the disaster management circle review. That is, it comes over and over. So it comes from preparedness, mitigation, and response recovery. If there's a disaster, so how do you recover from that? Do you have the tools or the resources to recover from that process? So we can, the way we can achieve this is working together from a partnership to be able to educate students to move to the next generation that we want to. Next slide, please. Next slide.
Thank you, Professor Ibui, for not only taking it outside of the framework of disaster as being, you know, like like an act of nature or something like that, but also in a college or a university, thinking of students not being prepared as well as we think we are, right, as that being a disaster as well. Because we could be up just talking and thinking that everything is sticking, everything we're throwing is sticking, but it's actually not. And that could be a disaster. And when we go to measure that could be a problem. So when we talk about HIM and their role in planning in an emergency situation, we think about all the education and the training that we give to the students, and also the arsenal that we have that they purchase. That's their textbooks. That's using the internet. That's using, all the research tools and different things that they've learned and gained while they've been with us during that time. So as employees and staff, we need to make sure that they are that they're able to manage during any kind of crisis. Communication. So when things do happen, like Professor Ibui said in her example with the classroom, if we do have students that can't make it, or if we do have students that are not able to come to class, maybe they can phone in, because I do that all the time. Last week, I had pneumonia, and I couldn't come to class. But that didn't mean that I couldn't teach the students. I just simply sent out an email message, and I let them know that, hey, if you don't show up, that counts as an absence. And don't you know they were all there on Blackboard Collaborate. Oh, a bird just flew in to hear us. And so when you think about any kind of natural disasters or anything that would cause, the internet or phones not to work and different things like that, you want to make sure that you have a method of communicating. So my method for my students is an app called Remind. And so we like to, they can message me anywhere between 8 and 10 p.m. So 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. about any kind of questions and things like that that they have. Maybe that's something that, the hospital staff might want to set up to make sure that they can keep in contact with their staff. And you don't have to give out your actual information. You can just put it in, but no one can see your actual phone number. So using the intranet and social media as well, if, the internet connection is available. So sometimes in a hospital and in educational settings, we have vendors like Blackboard or 3M or Nuance that provide us services that we need during any time. And so we need to make sure that those vendors are set up and ready to provide us that information even during downtime. I'll take the next slide. This kind of duplicates what the other slide says, but it also puts that HIM 412 and 413 spin on it, so that organization and management class that we teach. So in that class, they learn contingency planning. They learn about electronic health records and what should happen in a backup situation, that they should have paper available. They should have job descriptions available. They should have a process, like a policy and a procedure that goes along with it, so employees can know what to do. So in a paper situation, we would want to make sure that, we have a process to either dry those records out. But in an electronic health situation or a hybrid situation, we would want to make sure that we have a backup plan for that as well. Looking towards the environment to make sure that maybe the CPUs aren't on the floor if there's a flood, or making sure that things are locked and we can access things whenever we need to. Also, that the workflow, that, we rely a lot on computers, but if they go down, what are we going to do? What's going to happen? And then also when we talk about vendors, that's that streamlining process as well. And we want to make sure that they're keeping up with that yearly, telling us what they're going to do if something should happen, where their things are stored. And then project management is a huge factor as well.
Okay. This is just we just added this slide. So one key that I want to emphasize on this slide is, 2 more minutes. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Uma, just skip that slide. Go to the next one. Because the last one. Okay. So one thing again is we're talking about licensing. Licensing is also a barrier to global global place. So how do we bridge that barrier when it comes to license? Even though there's a disaster right now, and if somebody wants to come, if they don't have that appropriate license, they cannot even help. So how do we cut that bottleneck that is causing those barriers when it comes to emergency or a disaster? One size does not fit all when it comes to disaster, because people view disaster separately. So, yeah. Next slide. Okay. Conclusion. Okay. Looking at the time.
Okay, so I'll just ask that my colleagues add into this as well. But these are basically conclusions and implications. We talk a little bit, we conclude pretty much the research with attracting qualified professionals to healthcare jobs, whether it's in small or rural communities in countries. That being very difficult to do. With creating accredited HIM programs to address global workforce and HIM professionals in the healthcare arena, that definitely has to be incorporated to mitigate any issues that are to come down futuristically. Incorporation of contingency factors help really balance and bridge gaps to having a sustainable network of stakeholder participation, okay? Hence creating a healthier global environment. And then of course the global workforce extends that vision of helping global communities adapt and align practices so that we can prepare organizations for threats or possible threats. Student stakeholders are, again, very essential to assuring that global learning will continue and integrate into practice as they pretty much contribute to the 21st century workforce. And then we look at the incorporation of healthcare organizations' ability to teach individuals what's necessary to be successful. And global, last but not least, in global settings, students have to be prepared to meaningfully engage and translate these practices. And that only comes with that understanding of all the stakeholders and what parts that they have to play in the position, in the context of this particular research. Any questions? Any questions?
Question. Okay. Oh,
Sure.
unless you have.
I just wanted to find out from you during your research, in terms of developing countries, do you see what challenges did you find when you were researching in terms of if you wanted to integrate into the international arena? Because you mentioned about the technologies like 3M and those resources, which we would need here because we have a 2-year associate's degree. So in terms of bridging that gap, what would be the step forward if you wanted to integrate our students into your programs?
Well, since you met patients at AHIMA, have you looked at using VLab? Because, and it's...
Well, in terms of, I have explored that, but as it relates to the costing, those things as it relates to finance. So in terms of any open source technology that we can apply to our program would be useful at this time, but costing is one of the R factors in terms of funding.
Okay, yeah, because we just fought this battle with paying for VLab with, do your students pay technology fees? You do, okay, because that was one of the things that we were able to do is take the money from the technology fees and actually purchase the VLab codes for the students. So I don't know if that's something that you possibly, maybe not. I think you might want to, and then if you purchase it directly from AHIMA, you get like a $50 discount because you don't get the markup from the bookstore. I don't know if your bookstore marks up, but our bookstore marks up. So so the students didn't have to come out of pocket visually, but it kind of paid, like, so financial aid might actually, attribute to that. So that's one thing. Find a code online. Have you tried that? So it's findacode.com, and I could give you the resource. That's actually an encoder that's online that's free. right? And so you can definitely use that. So when she talked about 3M, I was thinking encoder. Okay, because 3M is like one of the most world-renowned electronic coding book devices. It's an electronic resource. It has every single thing that a coder would need to code. Find a code is free, and then there are some other ones that, you know, you might just be able to talk to, and maybe they'll give you like maybe one license for a semester and allow the students to go in and play around and different things like that. But you also, I just want to tell you guys that she has a wonderful program that is accredited by our accrediting body. But because she's here in Barbados and our credentials are only recognized in the United States, she's not able to have her students sit for the exam that Patience and I sat for. So it's unfortunate, but I'm sure she's going to pick up the fight.
Just to add up to what you're saying, one thing that I want to look at is to look at grants, right? There's a possibility of grants. There are grants out there that support education, and if you can find a way to write those grants, I think that would be very helpful. And also another thing that you want to do is like articulation agreement, right? From like school that are in the US, like ours. If you have articulation agreement, then in that process, because we are hybrid education, so the student can finish the 2-year colleges and transfer to our college, but that agreement have to be in place, then that would be a good step to do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then the Global Workforce Initiative, but I can definitely share that with you as well.
No problem. Any other questions from the audience? Okay, I would just like to wrap up and just say that we had a very insightful and informative presentation, and I am definitely looking forward to continuing the relationships and seeing how we can move forward the program here and start integrating the innovative STEM practices that you have already done at Coppin State. So on behalf of the conference committee, I have a few tokens of appreciation for you. So I want to say thank you for coming down here and sharing this wealth of knowledge. And I would like everyone to give these ladies a round of applause. And I also want to thank you too for staying with us. So this is the last presentation for the afternoon, but we really appreciate you staying, and I hope you learned something this afternoon from these ladies. Thank you.
Thank you.